Mr. Young.
Aha.
Aha.
What's going on?
Oh, nothing, man.
These are kind of weird times. Above and beyond all the just general weirdness in the world, this season change has just messed me up.
I mean, and it's cold one morning and warm the next morning. And
you put on a sweatshirt in the morning because it's 50 degrees. Then it warms up, and I take it off and sit it on the back of a chair somewhere. And then the next morning, I have no idea where it is because it's at work or somebody's office or in the truck. And then I got to get it.
I have on the back of my chair this vest that I sort of wear. It's kind of the in-between thing. And I don't mind if I beat it up. So when it's just cool enough outside in the morning, I put it on. Except this time of the year, I end up leaving it in the shop.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't wear it for, most of the hours of the day that I'm here. Anyway. Welcome to fall, Bill.
Yeah, no, I'm in that sort of cornflakes to oatmeal transition. What I have for breakfast, it's cornflakes in the summer and oatmeal in the winter. And now I'm like, I alternate day to day. It's like, what is it? What is it? Cornflakes today or oatmeal today? So
our refrigerator conked out a couple of days ago.
Oh no!
So we had to pull all the stuff out of the refrigerator, put it in coolers. I had to go out, after work and go get a bunch of ice and all that. Such a pain.
Wow. Did you get a new refrigerator?
No, we got it serviced. Guy came out. I thought it was the control board was going bad, but it was the the evaporator and the thermostat and one of several fans.
Yeah.
Whatever.
A doohickey went bad.
Yeah, doohickey. A widget went bad, and that caused two other widgets to go bad. And,
right.
$300 later, I'm paying the guy to, get out of my house.
Yeah, it had a bad internet connection or something. The refrigerator, back when I was a boy, refrigerator just got stuff cold. It didn't have to have all this fancy stuff. But
man, I wish we could just go back to those days.
Yeah.
I bought a refrigerator when we used to have a house over close to the university. And I bought a refrigerator and I thought I had arrived. I was buying my first refrigerator of my life. First real refrigerator, not one of those college beer fridges,
Right.
And I paid, Bill, I think I paid $350 for this thing. It had its own freezer on it.
Oh, man.
It's like, wow.
It wasn't one that's kind of rounded on the top with the lever handle that you pull down, the chrome lever handle. Those things last 100 years. They're still cold.
Keep your kids out of them,
You can't buy one now that'll last 20 years. Yeah, they were kind of death traps. But, survival of the fittest.
Right. Something like that. So what are you up to?
Oh, let's see. I'm working on this project with the House of Mercy in Rochester. So getting templates cut and kind of getting all that sorted out. I'm in one of my many decisions to make. I'm trying to decide whether to ship it up there or put it in the back of my truck and drive it. I'm generally terrified about putting stuff on trucks. But you just never know if it's going to make it, if it's going to get busted up, if, some guy having a bad day, mad at his wife, is going to drive a forklift through the side of it. And part of
I'm generally concerned about putting myself in a truck and driving places these days.
Yeah, there's not a good choice here. It's a 9-hour drive. It's further.
I'd probably just band it and hope for the best.
Man, I don't know.
I'd just crate it up and band it and hope for the best.
Man, we've had stuff just torn up. So it's a tough call. Plus, there's a bunch. My wife's been crocheting stuffed animals and stuff to donate up there. So if they get lost, I've got to learn how to crochet real quick. So I'm thinking that I don't know. I'm gonna see. I may just go drive it up there, spend a quick night.
Can you just attach a couple of needles and it's like X, Y, Z kind of?
I don't know. It's a pretty mystifying thing to watch. She just kind of does this kind of
I know.
while the bear comes out. I don't get it.
You know, I got a couple of boys who sure wouldn't turn down a crocheted bear.
Well, I tell you, she's a bear and rabbits.
Just putting
and
Christmas orders in there, Bill.
She's got elephants and rabbits, and she's having a big old time. But yeah, if it was just some kind of a product, that I, it got lost, I'd just ship another one. But this is, these guys are going to be making their own shelters. This is templates, and this is, it's going to be cold in Rochester. So it's not something I can say, well, if it gets lost, doesn't show up in a couple of weeks, I'll spend another week or two working on it. There's kind of a tight window here. So I don't know. I'm not thrilled about driving. I mean, I'm in such a damn bubble about COVID, and we have no cases. I mean, we haven't had cases in weeks in this little isolated place I'm in.
Right.
So, there's just nothing. So it's, I'm sort of become a little bit, I don't know what the term is.
Our county's done pretty well. I mean, we've had some cases once the university got back in session. There was a pretty sharp, vertical spike, but that seems to have normalized now a little bit. But I've been in my own personal bubble. I mean, even this job that we just wrapped up, every time I go on site, I've got a mask on, and I'm like one of the only people wearing a mask, but I'm just like, I don't know where all you people have been and who you've been around. And
I usually keep my band around my neck so I don't lose it. But
I mean, I just, the big thing is like the particulate in the air, and I know that they're conducting business, which means that they've got people coming in and out of the building, and they're good folks, and they're doing the best they can do with taking temperatures at the door, and they actually keep their door. I don't know if it's always like this, but for now anyway, they're keeping their door locked, so you have to push a button for an intercom, and the lady unlocks the door, and then you're met at a receptionist desk, and they take your temperature, which is all great, and I appreciate it. But it doesn't change the fact that if somebody has just come in who's been exposed, and they just finished a meeting in the conference room where I have to go work, no thanks.
I just don't know. Yeah, so I'm sort of torn about this. If it wasn't something that really sort of affected how people made it through the winter, I wouldn't be right. I wouldn't be nearly as concerned about putting it on a truck. But I tell you, we've had a lot of stuff messed up. In stuff that Shelter's done, the stuff that I've sent, stuff that ShopBot sent. It's just.
How long is your drive to Rochester?
It's about 9 hours. So it's kind of a long drive, an hour to unload, and I'm not sure I've got 18 hours plus an unload in me. Back in the day, that was just, I'll get up 3 a.m, drive up there, unload, drive back. But I'm sort of at the moment trying to mull over what.
Man, those days, Bill, they get farther and farther apart for me.
I can drive a long way, but I can't drive. I just can't deal with the nighttime driving. I can get up early in the morning and drive. I can get up when it's dark and drive as the sun comes up. And that's no problem at all. Right. But if I'm driving and it's starting to get darker and darker, and it's the old man thing. You just kind of my whole time has shifted earlier and earlier. I get up earlier and I go to bed earlier, and I can't. Driving at night is the time to do it. At night and early in the morning, there's no traffic.
I'm clearly turning into an old man faster than I realize, because I get up real early and I try my level best to go to bed early every night. It doesn't always work, but I've got 2 little kids, and it sure does help, because it's like the house has to be shut down, and it just makes it so much easier for me to just go on to bed.
Yeah. I've watched the first half of every movie on Netflix, I think. they're all new to me. It's
Hey, we went the other day, a quick recommendation. We watched I think it's called My Octopus, or My Octopus.
I've seen that. It shows up in my recommendations up at the top.
Yeah, it's good. You should check it out. It's fun. It's a story.
I'll do it.
So
what's going on with you?
Let's talk curtains, Bill.
Okay.
Let's let's talk curves. I've had a couple of questions from folks wanting to, they say, well, you guys are getting into all this good stuff, but you haven't talked about any of the stuff that CNC does really well. Like the stuff that working by hand just is awful. You add a curve to something, you got to double the price of it right then and there, because every other part of what you're building just got real hard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that really is what CNC's made for. I mean, if you're just cutting rectangles for cabinets, you can push a lot of material through a good table saw, and
yeah,
it's fast and all that. But once you put a curve in it, you can sort of sneak up to on the line with the bandsaw, but it's still CNC shines on curves.
Yep.
And weird things like that.
Well, one of the questions that I have is you and I've talked about this many times, but what we sort of affectionately termed lumpy and swoopy.
Yeah.
You have shared your wisdom on like editing your nodes when you're drawing curves with me many times, and I found it to be sage advice, because the notion for everybody is just to run in and say, okay, I'm going to put 1,000 little nodes in here and I'm going to get this curve. But you always talk about less is more with that.
It's really true. And a lot of that comes from being a boat builder back in the day and a boat carpenter. And
right.
Back
everything.
I'm gonna revert to my "you kids stay off my lawn" mode at the moment. But back in the day, before you had computers and plotters and all that stuff, you got a boat designed by a series of measurements off a baseline, and you stretched an actual stick on there and drew the curve and measured all the intermediate points, so you had a nice curve. And when you were ripping boards off, if you had a nice straight grain board, maybe a piece of white pine or something like that, or a piece of ash, you'd save that long skinny board and square it up for a batten.
Right.
And the secret was, the fewer constraints you had on that curve, the nicer the curve was. As soon as you sort of force it in by adding an extra, we actually did it on the floor. You'd nail a nail in that this batten would.
Right.
And, the more nails you put in, the better chance of it having a little kink in it or a hump or something. So, I mean, ideally, if you can do it, 2 endpoints and 1 node in the middle would give you the fairest curve. You're a little bit constrained by the.
I found that to be true. I made an OG curve on one of the pieces for that, for this job that we just finished. There was a dry bar that we built for this commission, and the end of it had to fit into this weird little build out on the wall where they were maintaining, the original brick structure, and then they had this drywall window, and it was just a funky little place. They wanted this piece of furniture in the hole, and they said, we're for doing that where it doesn't stick out past the window. And I said, well, I'll just put a little swoop thing in there, and that's that. They all sort of looked at me like I had lost my mind. Everybody's kind of scratching their head. But what I did was just made if the bar top was this big on this end, I just made sort of an OG curve to where there's this little tail that goes into that section of the wall. And when I first started drawing it, I did exactly the wrong thing, put a bunch of nodes in there. Tried to force it in space, and it just wasn't right. Every time I'd look at it, zoom out from it. And so I just deleted everything I had just wasted half an hour doing, and went back and I put a midpoint so that there's sort of 2 sections of the curve where the OG occurs. And I put a midpoint about here, and I just 2 endpoints, and I just made 1 swoop and then the other swoop.
Yep.
And so I literally only drew 2 curves. It took, 30 seconds to make the drawing. The curve is perfect, and let the computer do it. Let it figure that out, and just,
if it doesn't,
just, and that's straight from you.
if it doesn't have to be a prescription curve and be absolutely precisely something, there's a lot of simplifying tools and curve following tools in VCarve where you can take something, and like a tracing in particular, when it traces a bitmap, you can select it, and I can't remember what it's called, fit to curve or something like that, where it can take that and create a curve, and you tell it how close it has to be. And if it doesn't have to be precisely that, you can say, get within 1/10 of an inch or, 1/16 of an inch or whatever. And it'll simplify that, all those points into a curve that you can then monkey with, grabbing the handles and ooch around. You can also do some neat stuff just with the filleting tools. If you want to make, let's see if I can do this in the air. If you want to make a sort of a curvy like this, like, give me a second.
We need some Jeopardy music while you're gone.
We need something. I can't find anything. Everything I own is in a big pile. But at the end of the ribs on the shelter, it's got this sort of S-shaped curve that matches the other side. And instead of drawing that as a curve, I just drew, let me see if I can, V, 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 like this, as a polyline, and just filleted the corners. So it just kind of went up, curved, came down, because I wanted those kind of straightish sections between them. And that gave me the tangent. I didn't have to monkey with the tangents. And then just, adjusted the radius of the fillet until, I'm waving off in space. You can't see what I'm doing. But fillet it along. And you just adjust.
This is high tech. All of this stuff, this is high tech.
Yeah. Well, you just adjust the radius of the fillet. And, if it doesn't look quite right, undo and change the radius and fillet it again. It's a couple of clicks. But those things, and then, you just take that and duplicate it and stick one part on one piece and a copy of it on the other piece, and you're guaranteed it's going to be right.
Well, and then, one of the things I was talking to a friend about the other day was he was asking about, when you open any CAD suite by AutoCAD, right? Any product that AutoCAD, that Autodesk makes, the opening, graphic art that you sit there and stare at while you're waiting for the thing to open is, it's all this crazy, aerospace kind of, most of it's just made up shapes and things that they've animated and rendered out. But still, it's stuff that you should be able to do with a CNC machine and can do. If you want to take that time. And so the question was, how do you make something that is, curved accurately on the flat plane that you're going to cut with, say, VCarve, and then it's also going to have these complex curves this way, so it becomes more of a sculptural item. And I said, well, you're just thinking about drawing the curve in multiple planes. So, if you draw the part to be cut from overhead in VCarve, you can look at that as one simple file, right? If you use a program like Aspire, then you also gain control over its ability to do this stuff. And basically, you just want to tell it where to go. And he said, well, how do you then join those parts accurately? And I said, you have to plan ahead to make sure that you maintain some square parts, some square areas. The joint is still going to be a square joint. It's just where they're mating may be curved or whatever, but the parts that are going together still need to be flat and be able to be joined.
Yeah, all the Vectric stuff, or at least VCarve and Aspire, let you project 2D onto a 3D. So you've got, let's say a dome shape. You can carve text. You can do shapes on top of that follow that contour. So you can cut, you can do some pretty neat stuff. There's also this, there's a bunch of weird stuff in the ShopBot software and that sort of float around the ShopBot universe. But there's one that does, I think it's in ShopBot Labs, which is where all the weird stuff that's kind of mostly works, and it's kind of interesting, sort of unitasker kind of things. But
Mostly
there's one kind of, yeah, and there's a rating on each one of sort of confidence. You know, what are the odds that this will do what we expect it to do? But there's one called the flipper that basically takes something you draw flat and flips it on edge.
Okay.
You can draw a shape and then use the flipper and just bloop, flip it up on edge, and it flips the X or the Y in the Z. Which is
okay.
It lets you do some things where you want to draw a contour and then follow it along the length of something without having to model it in 3D.
Right.
And there's some interesting things you can do with the fluting tool in VCarve and Aspire. I'm not a whiz on that stuff, but I know people that do just amazing. I mean, you can make bowls, you can make all kinds of crazy molding.
Is that, I can't remember who was doing it earlier this year, Ryan Patterson or Brian, or one of the folks at ShopBot did a video on making a bowl or making bowl shapes with a HandyBot. Did you see that video?
I'm sure I did.
And I want to say they were using the extruder.
It's possible because it lets you follow along the line. So you draw the cross section, and then it just basically takes
and then it just sort of wraps it around it or whatever.
Well, it can either do it lengthwise. So it just takes that same flipping thing. It takes that profile, flips it on edge, and then just steps over at each.
Okay. Well, maybe I'm confused. Maybe it's a different tool.
You can do circular that way too. So you can draw. You can tell you want to follow a circle in that shape. So you could do a bow shaped like crown molding on the inside or whatever.
Gotcha. Well, Bill, as we're sitting here talking, you know, every time I talk to you, I have a new set of questions or ideas or something. I'm thinking that we should do our next video, maybe just get you to give us a tour of the ShopBot software so that we know, you know, because it's so much more powerful than I ever get into.
There's a lot of things in there. There really are. You know, there's a bunch of.
I mean, it's surprisingly good software.
Yeah.
You know, for something that seems so, you know, kind of bare bones when you're just using it the way I interfaced with it, it just does what you want it to do every time. And it's just, you know, it's just kind of binary on and off. But every time you mention something, you say, well, yeah, it's in the software. And I have no idea where to go find half of this stuff.
I mean, it's easy just to use the FP command and just run a file. Just boom, pick the file, go. But there are a lot of weird little, you know, both, you know, gee-whizzy things it can do and settings that are in there that can make it more efficient. You can make your cutting more efficient.
Right.
You know, ramping and circle resolution and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah.
I must admit that most of what I do,
well, let's
the blunt instrument stuff, just, you know, run the file. But the combination of ShopBot software and the Vectric software is, I mean, I rarely go out of that anywhere. If I have to do real 3D stuff, I'll usually use Rhino. I use SketchUp. I'll draw parts in VCarve and then go into SketchUp and assemble them as a model to make sure the tab really fits in the mortise and that kind of stuff. So
that would be a good video. But we should do something like that.
Proofing tool, you know,
yeah,
there is to just stick it all together. Yeah, I mean, probably those 4 pieces of software: the ShopBot software, VCarve, or Aspire. I'm not a very good sort of 3D modeler, the artistic kind, you know, the elk in the woods thing, which is what Aspire really shines at, is that artistic sculpting. You know, that's just not in my skill set. I haven't spent the 10,000 hours to do that. And Rhino, just because I've used it for a long time, and SketchUp. Yeah. And I think if you got those, you know, I never learned Fusion, and now they've keep changing the goalposts a little bit. So I'm not. You know,
I was pretty aggressive about learning Fusion. You and I started it.
Yeah.
You know, this has been a couple of years ago now. almost 2 years ago, which is kind of hard to believe, but really got intense into it for a while. And I was going to teach it because it's, it's open source, and at least for now,
But it's free.
and it's accessible.
It's
well, no, yeah, that's right. Not open source, but free. I said that wrong. You're right.
As Stallman says, the open source guy, it's free as in beer, not free as in freedom.
Right. Right. So there's no financial cost to doing it at this point.
Right.
And it's incredibly powerful software. But as I found, the more I learned about it, I'd go back to do something or to teach somebody how to do something in it, and they will have changed a tool or changed where some thing sits. And I think that's where I was coming to the open source part of the comment, because isn't it being developed by people all around the world, sort of?
I think
They come in and they sort of tamper with something. They say, I want this tool to do these things. And so they do that, and it just keeps, it's not open source, but it's really being contributed to by a large group.
I think it's collaborative, I think. But
right.
But Autodesk, holds the key to the kingdom.
Right. And it's just, it's incredible software, but it's just not, it's not practical enough, I think, for what most ShopBotters are going to be doing.
Yeah.
What I'm doing. I mean, it just doesn't.
I mean, it's set up for milling. If we're making turbine
Right.
blades and artificial heart valves and jet engines and, Tesla
Right.
dashboards and things like that, it would definitely be. But I think it's just, I don't need 25 ways to draw a circle. I just need 2 or 3.
You just need a circle.
Yeah,
Right.
a circle.
Sometimes
I want to do the size of it. Sometimes I want to set the point and the radius, but I don't need, all the different options, and they're all too complicated.
Yeah.
It's a
Well, let's plan on the next video. Why don't you give us a kind of a Bill Young tour of the ShopBot software? I mean, we don't have to delve into every detail of
I'll pick out some of the weird stuff.
The suite, but I think that could be a good, good lesson.
Yeah, I'll pick the stuff that I use. I mean, there's lots of stuff that's in there, but there are some things that I use pretty regularly. And yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Cool.
All right, man.
Well, let me know how the trip to Rochester goes, whether you drive it or you ship it or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to one day wake up and make a decision. But I really am terrified by putting stuff on trucks. I mean, it's just, you're just at the mercy of people. And it seems to have gotten worse during these times. Having trouble finding people. The, stuff just is more stuff is getting lost. I mean, in all the stuff, Amazon I used to get everything second day. I'm lucky to get 4 or 5 days now. It's just
really
everything, just nothing.
We're still getting pretty good shipments. Not on everything, but on sort of general household stuff. We've been, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's gotten real. It's close to a week for just about anything, and that's with Prime. It just takes too long.
Strange times, my friend. Strange times.
Indeed. All right, bud.
I did look up the bug assault.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
Man, I've matched a lot. I've ruined my karma with that thing, but my gosh. When they're cleaning out the grain silos up here and they're getting old soybeans out and all, the flies are terrible.
Right.
That's
got to be one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time. That's like flip flops with heels or something.
Oh my God, it's satisfying. It's way more satisfying than whacking them with a fly swatter. But yeah, I'm sure it ruins my karma. Karma is completely shot from that.
Oh, you're making up with it with these videos, Bill. Every time, man. Karma points.
I've reset my karma.
You're good, man. You are putting it into the bank. Well, listen. Have a great weekend. Let me know how Rochester turns out.
All right. Well, it'll be next week at the earliest before I go. I've still got it, but I've sort of got it half assembled to go on a truck. So who knows? I'll make a decision.
Cool. All right. Well, let's connect in a couple of days.
All right. Take it easy, Stuart. Talk to you later, man.
All right.
Bye.